The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with the threat of a storm, as I fishtailed into my driveway, tires screeching against the asphalt. My heart pounded from a double shift at the ER, 16 hours of blood, chaos, and split-second decisions. All I craved was the quiet of my own home, a hot shower, and a simple ritual of flipping through my mail. But as my headlights swept across the front yard, they caught nothing but empty air where my mailbox should have been. I slammed on the brakes, the car lurching to a stop. My mailbox gone. Not smashed, not leaning drunkenly on its post, but erased as if it had never existed. A cold prickle ran down my spine. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, and scanned the yard. The streetlights cast long, jagged shadows, and the neighborhood was silent except for the distant hum of a lawnmower. Where my mailbox had stood for 5 years was now just a patch of churned dirt, a shallow crater mocking me. My eyes caught a flash of neona yellow slip fluttering in the grass like a taunting flag. I snatched it up, my pulse spiking as I read the words printed in bold, "Unforgy VY in ink. Notice of violation. Non-compliant mailbox removed per HOA Regulation 9.2.1. Fine, due lot 200. What in God's name?" I muttered, my voice swallowed by the evening chill. The Crest VYEW Pines Homeowners Association had struck, and they hadn't even bothered to warn me. My mailbox wasn't some garish monstrosity. It was a sleek, slate-gray box with my last name, Hawthorne, etched in modest silver lettering. I'd chosen it to blend in, to avoid the wrath of the HOA's ever-watchful overlords. Apparently, that wasn't enough. Rage simmered in my chest as I stormed inside, the yellow slip crumpling in my fist. The HOA president, Eleanor Price, had been a thorn in everyone's side since she'd clawed her way to power 3 years ago. I could still picture her at the annual meeting, perched at the podium like a queen, her platinum hair sprayed into submission, her voice dripping with condescension. Rules ensure our community's prestige. Compliance is non-negotiable. She turned Crest VYEW Pines into her personal fiefdom, and now she'd targeted me. I dropped onto the couch, the slip glaring up at me from the coffee table. My first instinct was to call her, to demand answers, but I knew Eleanor wouldn't give me the satisfaction. She thrived on control, on catching people off guard. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the HOA's Covenant, a 60-page tome of bureaucratic nonsense I'd skimmed when I bought the house. Somewhere in there, I'd find a way to fight back. The next morning, I stood in my front yard, coffee in hand, staring at the empty spot where my mailbox used to be. The neighborhood was waking up, kids biking down the street, sprinklers hissing to life, but I felt like I was in a war zone. Across the cul-de-sac, I caught a curtain twitching at Mrs. Delaney's house. She was Eleanor's unofficial spy, always scribbling notes about whose lawn was a half-inch too long or whose car was parked a foot too close to the curb. I gave her window a mock salute, knowing she'd report it straight to the top. My phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor, Ja VY Ruiz. Heard about your mailbox. Eleanor's on a rampage. Watch your back. Ja VY had his own scars from the HOA, due law 300 fine for planting a rose bush that wasn't on the approved floral list. I typed back, she's not getting away with this. I drove to the post office, hoping to get some clarity. The clerk, a grizzled man named Hank with a beard like steel wool, listened as I explained the situation. HOA took it. Huh, he said, scratching his chin. That's bold, even for them. Interfering with mail deliveries a federal issue. But if you sign their covenant, they've got some wiggle room. Check their notification rules. Most HOAs screw that up. Back home, I dove into the covenant, my eyes glazing over legalese until I hit gold on page 52. All violations require documented written notice, delivered in person or by certified mail, with a 10-day remediation period before enforcement action. My blood surged. There'd been no notice, no letter, no knock on my door, just a yellow slip after the fact. Eleanor had overplayed her hand. I printed the page, highlighting the key lines, and headed to Eleanor's house, a sprawling colonial with hedges trimmed to surgical precision. Her Lexus sat in the driveway, license plate reading Crestville 1. Subtle. I rang the bell, and after a long pause, she appeared, dressed in a linen blazer and pearls, like she was about to chair a charity gala. Dr. Hawthorne, she said, her smile as warm as a glacier. To what do I owe the pleasure? You owe me an explanation, I said, holding up the violation slip. Why was my mailbox torn out without notice? And why am I being fined for your vandalism? Her eyes flicked to the slip, then back to me. If you'd read the updated guidelines, you'd know all mailboxes must be the Crest VYEW standard ivory with black trim. Yours was gray, non-compliant. I never got any updated guidelines, I shot back. And your covenant says I get 10 days notice before you touch my property. Where's the proof you followed that? Eleanor's smile tightened. A notice was emailed to all residents. Perhaps you should check your junk folder. Email doesn't count. The covenant says written notice, delivered in person or certified mail. You broke your own rules. For a moment, her composure slipped, a crack in her porcelain facade. Then she recovered. The board acted within its authority. Your mailbox was also 2 inches too wide. You have 1 week to install an approved model, or the fines increase to $50 a day. Plus the $200 removal fee. Removal fee? I nearly laughed. You stole my property, and now you're charging me for it? It's policy, she said, shutting the door in my face. I stood there, seething, as thunder rumbled in the distance. This wasn't just about a mailbox, Anna Maria. It was about power, about Eleanor's need to dominate every blade of grass in Crest VYEW Pines. I wasn't going to let her win. That night, I couldn't sleep. Eleanor's voice looped in my head. Compliance is non-negotiable. Fine. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. I started researching, DVYing into federal postal regulations. Tampering with a mailbox was a serious offense up to 3 years in prison. More importantly, HOAs couldn't remove mailboxes without proper procedure. It disrupted mail delivery, a federal mandate. I drafted a letter to the HOA board, citing the law and demanding my fine be dropped and my mailbox returned. I CC'd the local postal inspector for good measure. But a letter wasn't enough. I needed a statement, something Eleanor couldn't ignore. That's when I stumbled across Titan Security Mailboxes, a company specializing in fortresses disguised as mailboxes. Their flagship model, the Sentinel, was a beast, 100 pounds of reinforced steel, anchored in concrete, able to withstand a car crash or a crowbar. And it came in ivory, with optional black trim crest VYEW, standard to AT. The price tag was due $400, but I didn't blink. This was war. I called my friend Nate, a contractor who owed me a favor after I stitched up his kid's forehead last summer. I need a mailbox installed, I said. One that'll make an HOA cry. Nate laughed. You're insane, Caleb. I'm in. While waiting for the Sentinel to arrive, I rallied allies. Javier was first, eager to stick it to Eleanor after the Rosebush fiasco. Then came Mrs. Patel, a retired teacher who'd been fined for a birdhouse deemed too colorful. She introduced me to Tom and Gwen, a mechanic who'd been hit with a due $150 penalty for Leah VY in his garage door opened 20 minutes too long. We formed a group chat called The Resistance, half joking but deadly serious about taking Eleanor down. The Sentinel arrived on a rainy Thursday, delivered by a guy who looked like he'd just hauled safe. This thing's a tank, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. What's it for? Petty tyranny, I replied. Nate showed up with his crew, and we got to work. The rain didn't slow us digging a 3-foot hole, mixing concrete, setting the steel posts like we were building a bunker. Neighbors wandered by, curious. Javi brought coffee. Mrs. Patel took photos, promising to send them to the community newsletter. Tom rigged a temporary spotlight so we could keep going after dark. By midnight, the Sentinel stood proud, its ivory finish gleaming under the streetlights, black trim perfectly aligned. It met every HOA spec height, color, style, but it was a middle finger in disguise. I added one final touch, a discreet camera hidden in a nearby oak, its lens trained on mailbox. If Eleanor tried anything, I'd have her on tape. Friday morning, I sipped coffee on my porch, waiting for the INEVY table. At 8:45, Eleanor's Lexus rolled by, slow as a predator. She stopped, backed up, and stared at the Sentinel. I could practically hear her teeth grinding from 50 feet away. She parked, clipboard in hand, and measured every inch of the mailbox height, width, distance from the curb. She tugged at it, expecting it to wobble. It didn't. The concrete held it like Excalibur in stone. Her face twisted into a scowl, and she snapped photos before speeding off. By noon, the HOA's maintenance truck pulled up. Two guys in polos inspected the Sentinel, one of them chuckling. "This ain't going nowhere," he said to his partner. They left without touching it. That evening, Eleanor returned with reinforcements. Her brother-in-law, Greg, a wiry guy clutching a toolbox, and the maintenance chief, a burly man named Carl. I stepped outside, casual as could be. "Problem, folks." Eleanor spun around, her blazer flapping. "This mailbox is irregular. It's ivory, black trim, exact dimensions per your rules," I said, crossing my arms. "What's irregular about it?" "It's not the approved model," she snapped. "Show me where the covenant says I have to buy a specific brand." "I'll wait." Carl shifted uncomfortably. "It looks compliant, Mrs. Price." Eleanor's eyes flashed. "It's too heavy. It could damage our equipment if we need to move it." "Move it," I said, voice low. "Like you moved my last one without notice?" "That's a federal offense, Eleanor. I bought the postal inspector on speed dial." Greg set down his toolbox, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. A small crowd had gathered job VY, or leaning on his fence, Mrs. Patel with her phone out, Tom sipping a soda like he was at a matinee. Eleanor noticed and stiffened. "You're making a spectacle, Dr. Hawthorne." "No, you did that when you stole my mailbox and fined me for it," I said. "Speaking of, I expect that due lot 200 refunded by Monday, or I'm raising it at the next meeting along with every other rule you've bent to suit yourself." Carl coughed. "We should go, Mrs. Price. It's legit." Eleanor's glare could have melted steel, but she retreated, Greg and Carl trailing like scolded dogs. The neighbors clapped, Ja VY, or letting out a whoop. Mrs. Patel uploaded her VY Deo to the neighborhood's private forum with the caption, "Mailbox 1, HOA 0. By Monday, a check for due lot 200 was in my Sentinel, along with a curt note, "Fine rescinded." But the ripples didn't stop. The Sentinel inspired a rebellion. Ja VY installed his own Titan mailbox, painted to HOA specs. Mrs. Patel got one, too, her grandkids decorating it with regulation-compliant stickers. Tom went bigger, his mailbox so sturdy it could double as a bomb shelter. The local news picked up the story, dubbing it the Great Crest VY EW Mailbox Standoff. At the next HOA meeting, the community center was packed, standing room only. Eleanor sat at the head table, her usual smirk gone. When the floor opened, hands shot up. Ja VY called out her selective enforcement, citing neighbors whose violations mysteriously went unpunished if they were her friends. Mrs. Patel questioned the HOA's budget, pointing out thousands spent on Eleanor's pet projects like a fountain nobody wanted. Tom demanded transparency on violation procedures. Eleanor stammered, her authority crumbling under the weight of united voices. A week later, a petition for a recall election circulated, gaining 200 signatures in 48 hours. Eleanor resigned before the vote, citing family obligations. The new president, a quiet accountant named Lena Chun, promised fairness and open dialogue. The neighborhood exhaled. My Sentinel still stands, a silent guardian at the edge of my yard. The mail carrier, a woman named Tara, grins every time she sees it. "Toughest box on my route," she says. "You should charge admission." I don't know if it could stop a bullet, but it stopped Eleanor Price. And in Crest VYEW Pines, that's VY Tory enough. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.